Hi, welcome to our group presentation. It's called Let's Talk About Surveys. I'm Michael.
I'm Andrea.
I'm Lexi.
I'm Jake.
And I'm Natalie.
Hi, my name is Jake. Have you ever been asked to provide feedback after a customer service inquiry? Or even to be a taste tester for a friend or a relative after they've experimented with a new recipe? Feedback is needed in order to enhance a system or a process, and an effective method for collecting feedback is conducting surveys of a relevant audience. Surveys are typically used when information is from a large number of respondents and it is difficult to talk to the respondents face to face. Surveys are most effective when the respondents know that they are anonymous so that they are not worried about any repercussions from their responses. Surveys are also effective when there is a mixed method approach, which is a balance of both qualitative and quantitative feedback. There are two basic types of surveys: questionnaires and interviews. Typically, a questionnaire is a paper and pencil instrument that is administered to the respondents. The usual questions found in questionnaires are close-ended questions, which are followed by a response option. However, there are questionnaires that ask open-ended questions to explore the answers of the respondents. It is common and effective to use both open-ended and close-ended questions in questionnaires, and this is called using a mixed methods approach to surveying a sample population. Interviews are more personal and probing. Questionnaires do not provide the freedom to ask follow-up questions to explore the answers of the respondents, but interviews do. Common question types are close-ended and open-ended questions, and Natalie will introduce survey examples and question types to you.
Hi, this is Natalie, and I'm going to help you understand different types of survey questions. The first thing a researcher needs to understand is that there are two main question types. One type is close-ended, and the other is open-ended. Close-ended questions help to gather quantitative data. In this type of question, a respondent typically chooses a response from a list. On the other hand, open-ended questions gather qualitative responses. To reply to this type of question, a respondent actually writes a personal response to a prompt. Close-ended questions are appropriate to be used when researchers are seeking quick responses and want to be able to convert their responses into numbers. These numbers make it easy to analyze data based on the survey. On the downside, close-ended questions provide the respondents with limited response options, and these options may not reflect the true opinions, and their responses cannot be explained. There are four major types of close-ended questions. One type is yes or no. As the name states, this type of question simply asks the respondent a yes or no question, such as, did you post? The next type of survey question, a true-false question, is very similar to the yes or no question. In a true-false question, the researcher simply asks the respondent to select true or false in relation to a statement, such as, I met my deadline. Another type of close-ended question is the multiple choice. In this type of question, respondents are allowed to choose from a list of numbers, words, or statements, such as the statement, when did you post your initial post? And the options are the days of the week. And the last type of close-ended response is the Likert Scale. In this type of question, the respondent is able to reply to a statement or question by choosing from a range of responses. The response scale typically includes ranges such as agree to disagree, always to never, and important to unimportant, such as this example, reading my peers' posts helped me learn, with the range from strongly disagree to strongly agree. After conducting a close-ended question survey, researchers will have a large amount of data that can be easily computed and analyzed, but they may be curious about the rationale behind the responses. In this type of situation, open-ended questions are most helpful. Open-ended questions simply provide a prompt and leave a blank space for a written reply. Open-ended questions are beneficial because they provide researchers with rich responses full of insights about the beliefs and attitudes of the respondents. Another benefit of this type of question is that the responses may actually include insights that the researchers may not even have initially considered. However, these detailed responses are actually what creates the downside to open-ended questions, because it takes the respondents longer to provide written responses. As a result, fewer questions are typically asked. Additionally, the responses cannot be simply converted into numbers, which makes it more challenging to analyze. As a researcher, it is important to consider purpose when writing survey questions. Remember that closed-ended questions generate quantitative responses, and open-ended questions provide qualitative responses. Next, Michael will explain strengths and drawbacks to surveys.
Thank you, Natalie. Hi, I'm Michael. I'm going to talk to you about some of the strengths and drawbacks of survey data. Both closed and open-ended questions provide valuable data. The types of data recorded are hard, or quantitative data, and soft, or qualitative data. Quantitative data is generally used to answer these questions: who, what, when, and most importantly, compared with what. These questions are designed to efficiently gather large quantities of data. Qualitative data is generally informal and anecdotal. These questions and the data provided offer a richer source of information, such as the beliefs, outlooks, and opinions of the respondent. These types of data are complementary and serve to provide a more complete picture that can be used for goal setting and action plans that satisfy areas of need. Each question type, however, does have its own drawbacks. Closed-ended questions limit respondents to select predetermined answer choices. This does not allow them to fully explain their answer choices. Open-ended questions, while providing a richer source of information, as I stated a moment ago, due to the answer length, limit the number of questions that can be asked in one survey session. The results of these also cannot be analyzed quickly and numerically. Now to Andrea, who will discuss the development of surveys.
Thanks, Michael. Hi, this is Andrea, and I'm going to discuss some tips on how to develop surveys. There's two areas that you need to focus on when developing surveys: question development and the overall survey development. First, I'm going to discuss developing questions for your survey. It's really important that you know what information you want to collect and then create questions that provide the information you need. Surveys do not have a lot of room to explain questions, so the phrasing of questions is really important. Questions should be short and clear, normally no more than 20 words. You should use exact wording in the questions, using words such as generally, typically, often, rarely, or other non-exact words don't produce reliable results. You should avoid using jargon because it may confuse respondents. Also, avoid writing questions in the negative. All questions need to be relevant to the topic being evaluated. And lastly, each question should only evaluate one topic or idea at a time. Now I'm going to discuss developing your overall survey. Surveys need to avoid introducing any kind of bias. They should be attractive, and you need to make sure that you have a plan developed ahead of time for how you will be analyzing your results. Most importantly, you need to make sure your survey is easy to complete. Ensure that the formatting is consistent throughout the survey and include precise directions on how to complete it. When sequencing the questions on your survey, make sure there are smooth transitions between the questions and they are placed in a logical order. Lastly, sometimes it can be effective to include "other" as an optional answer so respondents do not feel limited if none of the options apply. Now here's Lexi to discuss some common mistakes people make when creating surveys.
Thanks, Andrea. Hi, this is Lexi, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the common mistakes that people often make when developing surveys. Surveys are a very effective tool for collecting data, but it is important that they are executed properly. Avoid these common mistakes and you will have a lot more success with your survey participants. The first big mistake we often see in survey development is general poor planning. An example of poor planning is writing poor quality questions that are sloppy, confusing, or have spelling mistakes. The wording should be clear and not open to interpretation. Another example of poor planning is in the delivery. The quality of delivery determines the response rate. Having an unclear subject line or coming from an unknown sender can cause people to delete an email before reading it. This limits the number of people that participate in the survey. Make the sender's name recognizable and choose your subject line carefully in order to trigger the recipient. This, of course, is referring to electronic surveys. Having unclear instructions is another recurring mistake that we see in surveys. The survey needs to be user-friendly. This includes making the survey easy and clear with how a participant is required to answer the questions and how they should submit it once it is completed. Another frequent error is not testing a survey before sending it out. When creating a survey, test it on a small group of friends, family, or colleagues to see how it appears when it is received and to ensure that it is not sent to junk mail, that it is user-friendly, etc. Not testing a survey before sending it out is a big mistake. Before sending a survey, it is also important to set a deadline for the survey to be completed. You will want to plan the time when you will send it. A common mistake is to send a survey at a bad time. During the workday is typically the best time. Not setting a deadline or sending a survey at a bad time are common mistakes with surveys. It is easy to see that poor planning is a big mistake when conducting surveys. Having the survey be anonymous is another big concern of participants. You will lose participants or their answers will not be as honest if they're not assured that the survey is anonymous. This is one advantage to using paper surveys. Participants do not have to sign in any way. Another thing that you will want to avoid is not planning in advance how you will analyze the data once you've collected it. Be specific about what you want to find out and use this to guide your questions. You will also need to think about how you will share the information and when you will follow up with participants. If responses are low, send a follow-up email or message to remind participants to participate. If you forget to get participants' contact information, that will make follow-up difficult. Not sharing the data or following up with participants is another common mistake. Another frequent mistake that we see is not enticing participants. People need some sort of incentive to motivate them to fill out your survey. A discount, a coupon, or a gift card are good options. Avoid these common mistakes when creating surveys, and you will have much more success with your participants. Next, we have Jake to wrap up our presentation on surveys.
Surveys should serve the purpose of collecting and analyzing data with the focus of enhancing a particular program or system. Surveys can be in the form of questionnaires or interviews. Questionnaires contain close-ended and/or open-ended questions, and questions should be carefully crafted in order to produce effective and desirable data.
Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today.
Hope you enjoyed our presentation.
Thanks for watching!
I hope you do well on the Ed puzzle.
Bye, guys.